Hello, this is African View with me, Yodita Adamaso. In today's edition, we have a special guest who is the founder of 3P's Motivation. He is Aaron Smith.
Yes.
Welcome, Aaron Smith.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, could you first tell us about your background, your growing up, what did you do, how did you get into this respiratory kind of motivation, that kind of thing?
Yes, definitely. I would love to. So I grew up in America, United States, in Jacksonville, Florida. I grew up in a very impoverished area, very poor. And since the age of 10 years old, I always felt like an impression to do stuff for people. And that feeling inside of me just grew. And then it led me to move to Maryland when I got older. And then while I was at Maryland, originally I wanted to be a pediatrician, but I think Yahweh had greater plans for me. So as I continued my studies, I met a mentor. His name was Alvin Tucker. And he talked to me about respiratory therapy and how I could help people breathe better. And I think the most significant part of that is when we think about how we live. In the beginning, when we were created, God gave us breath, and he breathed breath into our nostrils, and we became living beings. So breathing for me is not just about inhaling and exhaling, but it's just about breathing and life. And that seems so important to me. So after I really understood that principle, I went to college. After I finished college, I remained in the Washington, D.C. area. And in the Washington, D.C. area, I had an opportunity to work at various organizations there, just helping people, just learning about respiratory disease. As a respiratory therapist, it's an allied health profession where you work alongside the physician and you work with patients from neonate babies all the way up until adults. And what we basically do is we deal with disease, we deal with prevention, and we deal with education on many different respiratory diseases such as cancer, pneumonia, asthma, bronchitis. And as I work with people, it really just grew my love for just helping them from a selfless point of view.
Okay, so what does a respiratory therapist, what does it do, with all these diseases?
Yeah, so like, for example, asthma. As a respiratory therapist, asthma is basically a reversible bronchoconstriction disease. If you think about it, when you breathe in, your airways collapse. And many different things can cause your airways to collapse. It can be triggers such as your environment, smoking, allergies, different things like that. And what happens in asthma is you have difficulty in breathing. And it's two parts to asthma. It's inflammation, which causes bronchoconstriction, and then it's also a swelling around the airway. So as a respiratory therapist, what I do is I go in and I assess the patient, and I determine what severity of asthma it is, and I provide breathing treatments for them. Along with providing breathing treatments for them, I also educate them on how to prevent and stay away from those things that cause their asthma to happen.
So what are those things? How can we prevent?
So one way we can prevent in the home, we have a action plan that we use as respiratory therapists, and we educate patients on an action plan. That action plan talks about triggers. So what triggers cause you to constrict? So for example, my son is allergic to dogs. We didn't know that he was allergic to dogs, but dogs, the basic hair of dogs, if he inhales that air, the hair, it causes his airways to constrict. So what you have to do is you have to get rid of those things that cause your triggers. Dogs is just one example. You can have exercise-induced asthma, where if you exercise too hard, it causes your airways to constrict. Certain perfumes and things like that can also cause your airways to constrict. So what we do is we educate the patient, okay, so get rid of all of these things in your home, make your home as safe as possible, and when your home is safe as possible, you won't have those triggers. So for example, if you have a trigger, say if somebody wears perfume or something and your airways constrict, we teach people on the severity of an asthma attack. So what it does is we basically create a score. So one of the parts of the score would be, okay, how can you speak in complete sentences? If you can complete and speak in complete sentences, that's a 1. Do you hear audible wheezing? If you hear audible wheezing, then that's a sign too. Maybe it'll give you another self a point. How active are you? If you're very active, then your asthma may not be severe. So we total the point, so 1, 2, 3. We look at a scale, we give them a piece of paper, and we say, okay, if you red light, green light, yellow light. If it's a green light, that means your triggers and your asthma is not that severe. If you have higher level of symptoms, that means that your asthma is more severe, so you may move to a yellow light. And then once you get to a red light, that means you have to go to the hospital immediately. So say if I'm in a yellow light zone, we give them instructions on an inhaler that they take, and they take so many puffs of the medication. And when they inhale the medication, it's supposed to open up their airways. If their airways do not open immediately, then we tell them to go directly to the hospital. So when the patient comes into the hospital, we're able to treat them immediately by giving them a bronchodilator, medication such as albuterol. We give them steroids such as prednisone. And those steroids attack the disease, and it helps make the patient better. And we put them on either a frequency while they're in the hospital, and then we monitor them the whole time that they're in the hospital. And as they get better, we continue to educate them on different triggers.
Okay, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I read somewhere that some kind of exercises, like the yoga and some simple aerobics exercises, they can help cure asthma. Is it a myth?
That's a myth.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason why it's a myth is what we do encourage patients to do is we encourage them to remain calm. But as I said before, asthma is 2 parts. It's bronchoconstriction and it's inflammation. A simple breathing exercise to relax you won't treat the cause. What we tell patients is knowledge is power. The more you know about the disease, the more you can prevent the disease. What I mean by that is the more you know when you're about to have an attack, you can take your medication early enough to prevent the severity. And that's better than doing different exercises. And what I want the people to know is I want them to be more educated about not waiting to the last minute. Exercise is good because it builds up your stamina, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure you have your environment as safe as possible. And what I mean by having your environment as safe as possible is you have to get rid of all of the things that cause you to have an asthma attack. If you're allergic to pets, you got to get rid of that pet. If you stand with somebody who smoke, they have to stop smoking. If you're allergic to a certain perfume, you have to stop wearing the perfume. And I think the main thing I want people to know about respiratory diseases is you have to take them serious and you have to act early. Those are better than the myths that we hear.
Okay, but let's be realistic, when we look at the developing countries like Ethiopia and African countries, they don't have the access to their inhaler. So what do you suggest? Any herbal or homemade remedies that they can use during this kind of attacks? Or
what I would, as I've been in Africa for the last week and a half, and this is my 2nd time in the country, and I love the country. So every morning I walk I walked around Bole Road, La Bella, enjoying just the authentic environment of the people. And even for myself, I don't have asthma. And one thing I noticed is the increase in emission from the cars. So as a person walks around the street, if they inhale that smoke, it can trigger their asthma. So being in a country where we don't have all of the resources and don't have all of the machinery we need to treat the disease, what I would encourage people to do is have knowledge. And with that knowledge, just make sure they put themselves in the right environment. And as they walk out and as they mingle with people, make sure that in their home they have a humidifier. My wife has a humidifier in the house. So what humidifier does is it keeps the airflow in the house fresh. Open up the windows. Make sure you have a good flow of windows. You can do things like a hot towel. But what you just want to do is you want to make sure you don't put yourself in confined areas where you're secluded and smoke is in your face where you can be triggered. So I would say, if I can tell you one thing for people in Africa to know about treating asthma, is prevention. Make sure you know what to do to keep yourself safe. And I think other things too, healthy eating helps you as well. A lot of water, drinking a lot of water, doing certain breathing exercises. But I just think that knowledge is power. And the more the people are educated about how to prevent it, prevention is better than an ounce of cure. And what I mean by that is the more people know, the more that they can grow and they can stay in the safe zone.
Yeah, that's good. So one of your initiative that you have told me about is looking at the overall health system in Africa. And
Yes.
I've heard that you have also visited some of the hospitals in Remedies.
Yes.
So what have you evaluated? What have you come up with? And how are you going to partner with Ethiopian health?
Yes, so as a respiratory therapist, I had a great incident. My son hurt his shoulder, and we were able to visit some of the hospitals in Ethiopia. And I think the thing that I want to focus on the most is I think the most important thing would be just giving honest feedback about what happened. And I think with that honest feedback, what I'm hoping to do is focus people more on the solution rather than the problem. So as an advocate from America, I would just like to partner with hospitals and share with them some of the tips we use on customer service, professionalism, basic how you come in and how you assess a patient and things like that. As a respiratory therapist, I would love to teach them that. We have protocols in America that we use to identify certain characteristics of disease so you can catch them early. And I would also like to just encourage people that as many different practical things that you can do just to prevent sickness rather than giving medicine. And I think the major part that I see that the institutions can benefit from is just a little bit of better technology. I would love to go back to America and talk to some of my partners about how we can share technology, share processes of registration, like have an organized way when a patient comes in, register them. The thing I was excited about the most is I saw an electronic medical record where they used computers.
Yeah, it's a new system.
Yeah. So it was farther along than I thought it was, because most people, unfortunately, think of Africa as a jungle, and it's far from a jungle. It's like an amazing place, progressive. I see buildings. We took an X-ray. Everything we had in America, just on a different level, on a smaller scale. And I think if we can have people in my country of America know that, oh man, Ethiopia is not that far behind, and not just Ethiopia. Let's not even start with my country. If I can just talk to some other African countries like South Africa, that is just as progressive, maybe in the northern Morocco, they're very progressive. And just encourage people that, wealth is health, and if I can just focus just people in the hospital on that, I think that would be a great start.
How did you see the overall health system in Africa when you compare to your country, the United States? Here we have healthcare for everybody, which is affordable healthcare. You don't need to have insurance and that kind of thing.
So in my country, I think the major difference is it's a little more complex. I think in my country, it's a little more regulated, meaning that we focus a little bit more on quality and then access to healthcare, I think, and then lowering cost as well. I think what I've observed in Ethiopia is a lot of the hospital systems are trying. I was fortunate that before I came over here, I was in Dubai, I had a stopover, and I met a physician from America that had came to Black Lion. And he was able to, do a procedure there, and he just talked about how progressive it was. And I had the chance to see it with my own eyes to see, how progressive the healthcare is and how much of it's growing. Now, what I do see is there is some more growth that needs to take place. And what I hope is that as the healthcare ministers and as the people who are making the decisions, I hope that they're open to partnering more with people like myself and people like other people from the United States. I see myself more like in the realms of a medical professional that has a desire to be a medical missionary. And what medical missionary does is they go into the rural areas, and in the rural areas, they're able to provide education, provide basic simple tips on how to do herbal remedies, how to eat well, how to do basic sanitation procedures to help keep themselves healthy. And I think it all begins with education and partnership. So I think that's how I observed it. One, as a little more progressive than I thought it was, even though I think it's still more growth that needs to take place. But I think the partnerships would be great.
Yeah, I think you need to visit some of the health extension workers that we have here.
Yes.
They go to every rural area to talk about the things that you have mentioned. So let's go back to the 3-piece motivation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What's that all about?
Okay, so 3-piece motivation is basically about, it's 3 P's: being positive, having the right energy. And I mean, people can feel your energy when you walk into your room. Being peaceful, having peaceful, authentic relationships with anyone, no matter what language, culture, creed, or background that they're in. And then just having a positive, peaceful presence. And so having a presence, a self-confidence where you're not arrogant or prideful, but you're self-aware and you're able to operate in the gift in which God called you. And as you operate that way, people see your uniqueness.
Mm-hmm. You also talk about the 3 wellness and the mental, physical, and then the spiritual.
Yes.
Could we talk about, especially the spiritual one? It's very interesting. So
Definitely. So I was reading a book last night by the author of Ellen G. White. It's called Medical Missionary. And what she wrote in that book is she said our basic issues with spiritual health is a drawn away or a transgression of God's law. And when we go away from God's law, which is his moral law and his 10 commandments, what it does is it causes us to be intemperate. And basic word for intemperance is lack of discipline, right? And if I can, as an inspirational speaker, right? Not a motivational speaker, but an inspirational speaker. And the difference is I'm about breathing life. And it coincides as a respiratory therapist. So if I can come into an environment and I can breathe life on people, and breathing life is the words that we speak, because words have power. And what you believe in your mind creates action. So if I can go into a country, if I can go into an environment, and I can breathe life over those people, and I can encourage them and focus on the solutions rather than the problems, focus on positivity, focus on the right energy. What I think that will do is it will activate something inside of people. And what it will activate inside of them is the goodness. And people will become more united, and they will become selfless, and they will think of people's interests other than their own.
Okay, could you tell us a little bit of your experience while you are doing the inspirational speech?
Yes.
Anything that would interest us or ignite our...
Yes, so just this past weekend, I had an opportunity to partner with a church in Ethiopia. And with that church, the awesome thing that I was able to share is I was able to let them know that there is hope. And sometimes people believe what they see, but believing is not what you see, it's what you don't see. It's the things that have not manifested, right? For example, me being here with you today, it was a divine appointment. I didn't see it when I first came to this country, but if I can tell somebody, listen, if you can step out on faith, if you can go to a country and be with the right spirit, the right positivity, you'll end up meeting somebody and you'll end up being able to reach people that you never knew that they can reach. So on Saturday, I told those youth speaking with a translator. Mind you, I never spoke with a translator before in Amharic. One of my dreams since I was 25 years old is to come to Ethiopia and speak to people And guess what? I'm with you. You see the amazing thing? So if I sit in front of somebody who's here in a country that's so misperceived, right? People think Ethiopia is poor. It's not. It's one of the richest countries you can think about in Africa. I just need to remind people of that. And if I can remind them of the positivity that's in this environment, and if I can speak one word to one person and give them one thought, that's all I need to do. Because what they'll do is they'll take my words and they'll believe. And as they believe, they will receive. And as they receive, they will achieve. So that's what Through Peace Motivation is about. It's about motivating people. And I can show you on the back of my book, it talks about my philosophy is to reach people in the world. When I wrote this, I was in the United States. I hadn't even left the country. But my dream was to reach people in the world, not just the United States. And I think what people need to know is there's hope. And as they know that there's hope, it takes people to a whole nother level.
So everything starts with a positive attitude,
Yes.
positive energy,
Yes.
how you hold yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about a new level of living,
Yes.
10
Yes.
steps.
Yes.
What's the book all about?
So 10 Steps to a New Level of Living is for anyone out there who is struggling. Anybody who feels like they're in a position where they have not achieved everything that they want to achieve in life. And what 10 Steps to a New Level of Living will do is it will connect them with the Creator, which is Jesus Christ. And as they connect with Jesus, I take them through practical steps. And the first step is belief. And what I share with them is, what is your belief? What do you believe in? What is that thing inside of you that causes you to move, that causes you to breathe? And after I help them understand that, then I take them to forgiveness. I think the reason why forgiveness is so important is because we all have we've all had an incident in our lives where we've been hurt or we hurt somebody. And I think when you learn forgiveness, it transitions you to a certain level of compassion. And that compassion opens your heart to believe and love people that you never knew that you can love. And then after you love those people, I moved to restoration, and restoration talks about a brokenness, a rebuilding. So what you do is when you get on your journey, is certain things that you already know that you have to unlearn in order to learn the things that you need to grow. And after you learn those things that you need to grow, then I move you to taking a moment. And taking a moment basically tells you about the most important things in your life. And you have to have a good balance in your life. You can't work all the time, you can't play all the time. You have to have a perfect balance, and you have to understand a gratefulness to God. And as you understand your gratefulness to God, then it moves to your mind. Your mind is the way you think, right? It's the way you reason. It's the center of your choice and your will. And I encourage people to make sure that they recognize that there is a greater power than themselves. And as they understand that there's a greater power, they get connected. And as they get connected, that's where they find direction. Then as they find direction, I help them get started. And as they get started, what I help them do is I help them to find their position, I help them to find their purpose, their gift, and then they find new opportunities. And it's a workbook. So what it does is it has a methodology, which is pray, read, do. And basically what you do is every morning I encourage people to pray to God authentically, and then I encourage them to read His word, and then I encourage them to basically follow the instructions that they read. And then I use a prayer in the book, and then I use a Bible verse that they can use for reflection. And then I use a quote, and with that quote, they have certain questions that they answer about their lives and about how they feel. And as they go through this journey, it just helps them understand themselves better, understand that God loves them, help them understand that they are a great person and that they have purpose in this world.
Let me give you a scenario.
Okay, cool.
There's this guy. He's not a religious guy.
Yes.
He doesn't have that much strong faith, or he's not a believer.
Yes.
So he comes to you and he says, I've tried everything. He has tried 2-3 kinds of jobs which were not successful.
Yes.
So what do you advise him or her? How do they go on in their lives, to bring up that positive energy that you are talking about?
Yes. I would just encourage that person who's struggling, who hasn't found a job. The first thing I would encourage them to do is just to be honest, right? And in that honesty, what honesty does is I ask them, where do you think that they went wrong in life? Because most people live in denial because they don't accept the truth. I think once you accept where you are, I would encourage them to accept where they are. And in accepting where they are, then it opens them up to understanding where they are. And as they accept that, they move to healing. So I had a young man that I was working with that is not where he wanted to be, right? And he came to me, he said, Aaron, I need purpose. I've been trying, I've been working hard. Actually, he was working at the college, and he got laid off from his job. First thing he said is he was angry. Why did they lay me off? They're not fair. And I said, stop. I said, stop. Have you accepted the fact that you are meant for something greater? He said, what? I said, yeah. I said, what if this door closed opens you up to another door for you to be blessed? So when I said that to him, he immediately stopped. I said, stop the negative thinking. So what I am able to do is interject positivity when people are negative. And when I interjected that positivity, what I said to him is I said, what do you believe? I said, do you believe that it's over for you? He said, no. I said, if you don't believe that it's over for you, then God will see you through. And he said, okay, Aaron. I said, this is what we're going to do. I said, the next couple of weeks, you're going to think about where you are, what you've done. We're going to work on your CV, work on what you need to do and what you're good at, and we're going to pray about it. We did that. A week later, he got a call from a job, and he's mentoring. Now watch this. The job that he was working on was paying him about maybe $10,000 US a year, right? The new job, the job he got fired that was paying him $10,000, the new job is paying him 3 times more than that, and benefits. So what I would encourage that person to do is don't get stuck in negative thinking, because when you accept where you are, God can heal you, and then he can reveal to you his perfect will for you. And when he reveals that to you, it takes you to another level. So for that person who is struggling, for that person who doesn't have a job, I would say hang on. Don't give up. Don't lose hope, because what happens when you lose hope is it creates negative energy that if you meet somebody that wants to bless you, they will look at your energy and they will turn away from you. You see what I'm saying? But if you have energy, they'll come to you and they'll say, you know what? I see something in you that you've never seen, because people are always watching, and with them watching, if you always maintain, you'll be good.
So always have a positive energy, positive attitude towards things, and face them head on.
Yep, and you know what? This person wasn't a Christian.
He was not.
No. But.
How did you pray then?
But what I work with people all the time who don't pray. I give you a prayer in the book. Simple prayer. And you know what he says? I'll try it. Because people will try things when they need, and that's all God says. He says, come, let us reason together. Give me a chance. If it doesn't work, leave me alone. But what I believe in is it always works. Yep.
Okay then, we'll try it. So can you talk a little bit about the mental health?
Yes.
Alice?
So I think with mental health, I think is very underestimated as well. And what I mean by that is people don't realize or don't know that they could be having an issue, and they actually remain in denial. And when I talk about in my mind section, is I talk about how prevalent mental health is. And mental health could be as simple as, it's not like you're crazy, but it can be something simple as being stressed, having anxiety, being nervous, being insecure. All of those things could be a mental health issue that leads to preventing you from being where you need to be. Now, we do have the greater issues like bipolar, other sicknesses that you may need more of a healthcare professional to help you with. But what I do in your mind is I basically try to open up where a person is mentally. And what I do is I talk about principles of just basically how they think and how they think, and in how they think, I help them understand, like, if they're having anxiety, like, what's the root cause? Like, when and where do you get anxious? And they may talk about school may cause me to be anxious, or what stresses you out? Oh man, when I have too much to do, and the perfect example is my wife and I, we just had 3 kids back to back. So we had a kid in 2015, kid in 2016, kid in 2017. And my wife was just stressed out. I was stressed out. And what we had to do is, because what I believe is your belief system has to have a relief system. So what I was able to do is we were able to have conversations with each other to talk about where we are every step of the way. And how it helped us is we were able to understand, one, I had to understand that having 3 babies is a lot for a woman on her body. And in understanding that it was a lot, I was able to be more intentional about how I care for her. When she needs help, when I need to step in and take away some of the stress, when I need to give her a break, when I need to encourage her, when I need to pray for her and things like that. So that helped. But it can be any other thing. It doesn't have to be what you having a baby. It can be in your work environment. It can be your job can be stressful. And what I do simply is I just help people understand that as you have issues, the worst thing you can do is not talk about it, right? And even if you needed to go to a counselor, I recommend people going to counselors. You know, in our community, in the African American community, when you go to a counselor to seek help, it's looked at as a negative thing. But what I encourage people is it's not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. Because when you really think about people and interaction, all people need is somebody to listen to them. And when people listen to them and they're able to release what they feel and some people to help guide them, it makes it out for a more mentally health person.
So it's not good to hold on to things. You have to share it with people, with friends, talk to some of the people. Okay, that's very interesting. So at the end, I would like to ask you to give any message that you want to our audience based on the 3 Ps or anything that...
The message that I would give to anybody out there on behalf of 3 Ps Motivation is I would tell the person who feels down, I would tell the person who does not believe that they can do something that they were created to do. I would simply tell them to just, for one step of faith, just believe that no matter where they are right now, their current situation does not determine their final destination. Wherever you are right now in your life, this is not the end for you. It is only the beginning of him coming in and making you new. The way he does that is he breaks you. And as he breaks you, he remakes you. And as he recreates you with his words. Now, how can it happen? It can happen very practically. I can come, you could be listening to me right now, and I would encourage you, as you listen to me, is test my words, right? You can either do it by this, you can either do it by reaching out to me on email, 3psmotivation@gmail.com. You can purchase this book, you can get it on audio, you can get it hard copy, you can send me an email, but I think the first thing you have to do is just be honest with yourself, accept where you are. As you accept where you are, the healing will begin. As you become healed, then he will reveal his perfect will. And as he reveals his perfect will, he's going to take you to another level. So everybody out there that's hearing me right now, Yodit, I'm not supposed to be here today. Yeah. But I am here in Ethiopia on the 3rd floor talking to you. Did you imagine? Come on, did you imagine that? No.
And you are leaving when? At the end of the week, right? Like us, I guess.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? How we met, divine appointments, and how we were able to share and we were able to encourage people. In this book, I wrote something that says, that was one of my goals and visions, to speak in another country this year. And guess what?
It came true.
I believed it.
I believe. I believe.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's very good. Well, Aaron Smith, thank you for coming here and sharing your experiences and giving us this inspirational speeches that you are so popular of. And hope we will see you back again.
Definitely. I'll come back anytime you want me to come back. I'll come back.
Yeah, we'll have you definitely. We'll have you back. Thank you very much for this. Well, dear viewers, that's all we have for you in this edition of African View. Hope our discussion was very interesting, insightful, and inspirational. We thank our esteemed guest, Aaron Smith, for coming and sharing his experiences, his thoughts with us. And we would like to give special thanks to our sponsors, Intercontinental Hotel and Melat Style for the hair and makeup. Till next time, bye.